All right, guys, excited to introduce my friend Brent the Businessman. Brent, why don't you tell our audience a little about you, what you do, and your background, sir?
Absolutely. Thanks, Andrew. So, hey, everybody, this is Brent the Businessman. I'm out of Los Angeles, California, and my firm is Brent Business Advisory. And we work with business owners and entrepreneurs. And it's our job to help them increase their revenues by five, six, or even seven figures. And we do this with a very simple formula. It's all about investments and diversification. That's it. And so most companies, they know of the strategy, they know that it has to be implemented, but they just don't have the experts on their board of advisors or directors to help them get there. And then also the idea that capital is a constraint weighs very heavily in many businesses. And so we have to actually bridge that gap by giving them access to funding that's available for the business too. So that's what we do all together. We help business owners increase their revenues by five, six, and seven figures. Like I said, we do it through investments and diversification. Me as a person, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So go Steelers. If you guys are a football fan, you know, Pittsburgh Steelers, black and gold, black and gold. From Pittsburgh, PA, moved out to Los Angeles at the tender age of 23, right out of college. And I made my first million at 24 running an advertising company, right? And when I made my first million at that age, I ended up acquiring an advertising agency within the same industry that I was working in. And that was my first acquisition. And then from there, I put some money up in a syndication for real estate. And at 24, I owned shares of a syndication and also had my own advertising company after I made my first million. So from that time forward, man, I've seen many different industries. I've worked with a lot of different experts. And so here I am today on the podcast with you, Andrew.
Wow, Brent, that is just fascinating. That is wonderful. Why don't you just talk to us a little more just about in general, why investing is so important for everyone, that there's no getting away from it is kind of the comment you made before we started today's interview.
Yeah, I'm going to say when it comes to investments, if if more folks were to just look at the global picture, right? Because we're all kind of stuck in our own little cities, states, towns. Mentally, we're localized. But when we take a look at the global picture and we see how the economics around the entire world run, you're going to see one thing in common: banking, laws, and investments. And those investments would be real estate, very popular. The markets, we've all heard of stock markets. The currency markets, we all heard of Forex. And so when you look around the globe and you see that every country, at least the major ones, and the ones participating in our global economy, it's all about investments, it's all about banking, and it's all about laws. So when you see all of that happening, now take that global perspective and bring it to your local understanding. Now let's take a look at it, what we're doing as individuals or as families. Are we paying attention to the banking? Are we paying attention to the laws? But most of all, are we paying attention to where investments are going? And if we are, we'll be able to find a formula that works best for our own independent individual plan. And so when it comes to investments, looking at it from a global or local, with it being everywhere, you can't get away from it. So with that being said, it's either join us or don't. And if you don't join us in investments, well, then, that kind of outcome of life doesn't produce the best results, of course, because all of us need income in order to experience our freedom and experience this life at the fullest, right, in this realm. So it's either you get with investments or you don't. But looking at it from the global perspective and local perspective, you see that investments is the only way to go.
Wow, that's great, Brent. How much of it do you look at geographically, cities that are on the expansion or, the path of progress? And how much are you looking at industries, where some industries, have more potential for future growth, but perhaps with greater volatility?
Yeah. So on my end, when it comes to geography, I love to look at the emerging countries, which is very important. So if we look down, let's go over to Thailand. That economy is emerging, right? If we look down in South America, we have a lot of countries in that region that are emerging. So when I'm taking a look at geography, I'm thinking which countries are emerging where, as a more established entity here in the States, I could go to those other countries and bring value, right? Because once I bring that value, I'm in demand, the supply and demand cycle, starts to go. But most of all, Andrew, is when we look at the geography, there are also other countries where the tax requirements are a lot different. So when we're taking a look at our business and how we want to grow, if we look at the full map, then we can also choose geographic locations that benefit us via lifestyle, that also benefit us via taxes, even though we're here in the United States working. So when it comes to geography, I'm looking at that for sure. Emerging markets and where I can save on taxes. Yeah. So what was your other question?
Why don't you follow up to on our third token is laws. As a
Mhm.
real estate investor, when someone brings up certain countries to invest in, granted there's the perceived and reality of local jurisdiction, but as you know, like it's in many countries, foreigners can only buy like an apartment building. They can't buy a home. Or some of them
Mhm.
you can buy the home, but you can't own the land. You can only be leasehold, not fee simple. Whereas, certain countries are a little more willing to take on foreign money. What is your thoughts on the legal aspects of foreign investing?
Yeah, it's going to range as far as a wide range of options when you look at the full globe. But you're absolutely right. There are some countries that I've researched where you can get your residence or citizenship or however you want to kind of work with that country based off your investment. Some countries lean more towards entrepreneurs where they're bringing business to that country, while others are looking for real estate investors to at least get a property of 100,000 or something like that, in order to qualify. So, I like to take a look at all of the options, but you're right. There are plenty of scenarios where they give you these strict laws and rules that you have to follow in order to get in. But when you look at what's available at totality, well, you can make the best choices for sure.
That's really exciting, Brent. Um, what else would you like to warn our investors about? Because, there's a lot of fear for somebody to go outside their comfort zone and cross the American border. And I've always been told if you're going to do it, you really would need to have a trusted partner that has, boots to the ground people there and has the experience level. This is you're really moving into high stakes investing. You're going out overseas to the extent
Yeah.
you're talking about. What advice
Mhm.
would you have for investors that are considering it?
Build your dream team. What do I mean about dream team? You're one person, but let's say if I'm going into a new territory, let's just say if it's Bogota, Colombia, right? Before I go there, I'm going to find a lawyer or someone in the legal field. I'm also going to find someone in the banking field in that region, right? And they have to, of course, speak English because I'm not the best at Spanish. But altogether, before I go into that region, I'm building that dream team of local professionals and then also experts on the type of investment that I'm going to make. So if I'm going to, pick up real estate property or apartment buildings, I'm going to find that local expert that is in that region to join my dream team as well. And here's the awesome part. You don't have to pay an arm and a leg to build a dream team. If you understand how to build your corporation and to distribute shares, the dream team will come on board for equity. And if they're on board for equity, then you have access to their resources, access to their skills, access to their relationships. But most of all, they're going to bring their expertise to the table because there's not one person that is just great at everything. It's just much more wise and smart to surround yourself by all of the other experts so that you work as a team to get the job done. So any investors going out, going to expand on that global level, I would say develop your dream team. And that would be someone that is an expert in the legal field, someone that is an expert in the financial world, and then also someone that's an expert in the asset that you're going to invest in.
It's amazing you say this because three of the guys I follow in that space, Doug Casey, Andrew Henderson, and George Gammon, all say the exact same thing that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly Doug Casey, when they were asking him, I mean, the very first thing he focuses on is the attorney relationship, that they have the contacts and the connections. And his first stop when he's in a new country is, finding a relationship with legal counsel. It's amazing that you just said that. What are some of the other resources that someone looking into this or just wanting to get comfortable with the idea to look at? What are some of the resources they should be looking at, other than
Oh,
obviously contacting you?
oh, right, right. I'm going to say there's a gentleman I am an extreme fan of. So when he sees this episode, my hats go off to you, sir. His name is Andrew Henderson.
Yeah,
And yeah, Andrew Henderson, he's with Nomad Capitalist. And his whole job, of course, and a little plug for him, I guess, is
he's
to
a
help
great guy.
entrepreneurs, help entrepreneurs expand globally. And I'm a big fan, but most of all, his services break down step by step what any entrepreneur could do to take on an investment, strategy globally. So that would be a great resource. Start there. I've been following Andrew for about 5 years now,
Wow.
and I must admit, it was probably year 2 or 3 that things really started settling into my mind on what he was talking about and what he's attempting for people to understand, because I was just in that localized mindset, just Los Angeles, California, the United States is the best thing since sliced bread. But as you continue to grow and expand that conscious awareness and you see what's going on, yeah, you see that our lovely country here, it doesn't matter where we are in the States or where we are in the world, it's not the only game in town. And in order for you to actually take full advantage and live, to your fullest possibility and potential, in my point of view, my humble point of view, is using the entire map. And so Andrew Henderson, Nomad Capitalist, will be my resource to share.
That is outstanding. He does really run a great company. Does anybody really put out as much good content as Andrew Henderson? The guy's a machine, right?
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
machine. He
yeah.
doesn't stop. He's always got a new episode coming out, and none of it's boring. Like, that's the interesting thing. I mean, the guy's just talking in front of a camera, but with the content and information he's sharing, it's life changing. And there's a lot of YouTubers online that talk, get rich this way and get wealthy this way. But Andrew, if you can really wrap your mind around what he's saying, he's giving you the formula for your financial security. And I'll break it down to you really simple. What you've mastered here in the United States on making a living, you can do that in multiple places. You don't have to just do it here in the States. So the same skills that you've acquired on generating revenue, generating clients, investing, you can play that same model across multiple jurisdictions, across multiple countries. So let's say you're in the United States, your net worth, let's say it's something small, $500,000, right? You got some property in your portfolio, you're earning some income, right? And you take that same model and then you apply it to, let's say, Indonesia. Now in Indonesia, they have a credit system, banking system, credit cards, everything the same here in the United States. It's a little different on how they operate, but now imagine that 500K net worth here in the States. Now you copy and paste that in Indonesia. Now you have 500K in Indonesia. And then let's say we go to another country. We have another 500K. Now you're at 1.5 million. And you didn't do it all sitting right here in one country. You were able to do it across borders. Now, like I said, you need that legal and that financial expert and the industry expert in that area, so that you lower your risk of loss, of course. But with that strategy, it's unstoppable.
That's awesome. One of the ways Andrew Henderson often describes as the gateway drug into doing this is, opening up an offshore bank account or, offshoring, a subsidiary. Do you want to just talk a little bit about the banking issues regarding, is it's difficult for an American. We have so many regulations regarding banking.
There is there's I guess it would be called a document. It's called the Panama Papers, right? And this document, and there's another one that just came out, was released. I have to share the resource with you, but the Panama Papers and this other this other document share with us where the tax havens that the rich and wealthy, at least here in the United States and all around the world, where they place their money. And so it's important to know and identify those areas, because you don't have to be a Bill Gates in order to take advantage of the opportunities that are available to us. But having that knowledge, having that information, as as the little guy, let's say the little guy, it will affect your life tremendously. So I would say, let's take a look at the Panama Papers and this other resources. I'll pull it up for us. And I believe it'll be a great read for folks to get themselves caught up to speed on where the tax havens are.
And we'll get that, we can get that placed in the comments.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, even for the gold bugs, which just, are much maligned, often picked on investor group. I have a lot of friends that are gold bugs.
Oh, okay.
Even for them, the idea of midnight gardening and burying gold in your backyard, or, storing it off-site, within your own country, is often, kind of frowned upon by larger gold investors, saying, no, if you're worried about sovereignty, you really should be storing your gold in Switzerland or Liechtenstein or, Singapore or, the Bahamas, or, someplace other than your home country. But if the point of, the investment is largely about sovereignty, it would seem odd to be storing it in a, safe deposit box. It's not really not safe when the FBI can so easily raid it. Do you want to talk about that? Because Andrew Henderson has quite a bit of good content on that subject as well.
Yeah, he does. I want to share the resource I founded. It's called ICIJ.org, International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. So ICIJ.org. And they go into all of the unspoken and undocumented to the masses, realizations of how the rich and wealthy move their money and what countries, what jurisdictions. So I'm sure everybody will be able to, find some value and apply for their own personal situations. Now back to your question, you were talking about.
Oh, gold.
Gold. Oh yeah. Well, what's interesting, Andrew, is a lot of folks, at least here in the States, I don't think that they're really up to date with the gold, silver, commodities in that direction, but why it's so important. And so I just want to share this really quick. I forget the date, but we can look it up here. But was it 1933? One of those. But the U.S. Was taken off the gold standard, right? And at that time, when you take a country off the gold standard and you replace it with what we currently have now, the fiat money, it just changes everything. Not even just for the country, but also how money moves. And so what you'll tend to see now is the most educated, influential, rich and wealthy of us, they take advantage of the gold and silver, right? Because it's still within reach, right? For what they have access to. But with the states taking it off, taking us off that standard, many of the masses, we're just stuck with the fiat paper because that's all we know. So it's important that we educate ourselves. It's important that we pay attention to where all the money moves, because when you realize it, then you'll see, doesn't matter what size you are an investor, having gold a part of that portfolio is as important as it was for the whole country to take it off of us as it is today. So gold is one of those stores of value that can't be replaced.
Yeah. I mean, the one nice thing about it is the zero counterparty risk. It's accepted everywhere, and there's not much counterparty risk. You got the gold, you got the gold. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things about Americans, as you were talking about, we can be a bit insular in our worldview, a bit singular in our focus. Countries like India or many parts of Latin America, or Southeast Asia, gold is still very well regarded within families as a way to store value. So from a cultural perspective, I think people underestimate the importance of gold within the gold global economy. Central banks around the world are purchasing more of it than ever before, and just we have to recognize our bias as Americans. Not every country is believing in 401ks, IRAs, and stock markets, correct?
Right. Not
Yeah.
everyone is believing
Yeah.
in.
So, we kind of talked about investing in yourself, investing in businesses. We'll kind of skip the stock market because everybody already knows it so well.
Yeah.
We touched on gold just for fun, and real estate and businesses. The hot button topic that no one really wants to touch. Myself, I'm hardly an expert on. What did you want to touch on cryptos? Because it's kind of it's the love-hate question where you don't really get many people neutral on the subject.
Yeah. So crypto, interesting. Um, my personal experience. So, what was it, about 4 years ago? Wait, yeah, right before COVID. We're in 2023. So right before COVID, um, I was invested in Bitcoin, and so I was able to make an okay return. I'm not one of those guys that made billions and millions of dollars and all of that in that space, but uh, it was about 2 years ago that I said to my team or my firm, I said, look, we're going to open up a department where we invest in crypto. And my traders told me, boss, stay away from it because crypto is gonna bust. And I'm like, no, not based off of the experts that I've got on the dream team. They're telling me that this is the way to go, right? And so I told them we're going to get started, and we did not get started on it. And it was because I had another voice of reason come to me, and the gentleman said, "Hey, listen, if you're going to risk the capital in a industry that has not been regulated yet," he said, you're taking a risk. And let me tell you something: if it's other people's money, you don't want to do it. And so I heard it, Andrew, and I was like, all right, I won't. Let me take a pause because I'm already acquiring companies. We're already in real estate. So assets and income is there. When it came to crypto, and I got that little voice of reason inside, I said, just don't get greedy. And so I waited. Fast forward, the biggest exchanges going out of business. I had an entire business model centered around FTX.
Oi. Oh man. Oh geez. Talk
Could
about
you
hot
imagine
ass
if
discussion.
I would have taken the step
Oh
forward
man.
and put investors' capital at risk?
Oh God.
Everybody would have had my name nailed. Okay, nailed as don't trust no more. Don't invest with this guy. He's not, trustworthy, and it would have been a nightmare. So, as an individual, I've seen some success, not tremendous like others, but as a company, I'm so happy that I was able to protect my investors from loss, which we all know Warren Buffett's number one
Don't
rule
lose
of money:
money.
don't lose it, right? And so I was able to avoid that. But altogether, FTX, what's it, Bitfinance, there's been a few of them
Most
that have
definitely.
been total nightmares. What about you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, we put in just a very small amount of money because, my thought is always you're never going to follow something unless you put a little bit of money in. But obviously,
Mhm.
we didn't want to put a lot of money in because it was well outside of my wheelhouse. I'm not a techie person. I mean, frankly, Zoom is a stretch. I'm not a techie. I've had to learn quite a bit in the last few years just to try to keep up with the technology Joneses. And I never could get a clear answer about anything. Everything was always felt funny. And yeah, I mean, all the regulations were tough. They're all over the place. Hawaii actually had some of the toughest regulations in the country. We actually arguably would have the toughest regulations in the entire country. So thankfully, many of the firms wouldn't even accept me as a client as soon as they saw Hawaii ID. So that kind of actually saved me a little bit of money. So I only had a little bit in it. We had a little signal group where we would talk about it. Some friends we had one friend who was, more interested in the subject than others. And we dabbled in it and learned. And then sure enough, when it blew up, we were not surprised. Um, I
Right.
still have the diehard believers that believe it's the future. And I'm not arguing with them. I don't see it, and I'm a late adopter, and I'm more on the risk averse side, Brent. I'm a little
Mhm.
more comfortable buying that B class property, B class neighborhood in that linear market that's growing well, but not exactly a hot, cyclical market. Paying less than market, slap on some paint and rent it for the next 20 years. That's more my personality profile. So like one of the
Right.
lessons I've really taken when I talk to a lot of investors,
Mhm.
and it's funny that the people that I found best understand the psychology of investing are
Mhm.
traders, especially the full-time hardcore traders. And they will just
Mhm.
pound on the table saying it doesn't matter what the strategy is, if what the system is, if it doesn't align with your personality, it's not going to work. And the classic line, I'll put a shout out to my friend Tony Confliti. He just pounds this message constantly. This trader is the system is the trader. And it goes way beyond just trading. It goes to investing in life. So for me, I had no business being in crypto. It was just way outside of my personality profile. Regardless if
Mhm.
it had done well or bad, it was never going to be a good fit. I was curious what your thoughts are on personalities. No, there's two schools of thoughts. You can hang out with in a mastermind. You can get coaching. You can hang out with a better circle of influence, and perhaps expand your worldview and be more willing to take on risks, like going to Bogota. And then there's those like me that will say, okay, there's to the extent, yes. But then if you're not true to who you are as a personality type, it's not going to work. If you're a really risk averse person, and all your buddies are making a killing in Bogota, if you go to Bogota, you're probably going to fail even if you use the exact same strategy they use. So I was curious what your thoughts are on that very long-winded question.
Yeah, I believe that consciousness is contagious. I believe that, as much as you may try to fight it, you're gonna transform into the folks that you hang around the most, right? But like you said, knowing oneself is key. That's the only way you don't end up in a life of disaster, right? And so, as far as the profile types, like how you're risk averse, um, I agree. I think you should do what fits your personality type the best, but also be mindful that you want to do what's best, not even just for the group, but what's best for you as an independent individual. Because with the group or without the group, it's still on you,
Yeah,
right? And so I think it's very wise for you to be aware of your personality type and knowing that, hey, listen, I'm not the techie type of guy. I'm gonna stay far away from crypto in a major way. That is, I might put a little money in there to see if there's any return, but based off of your awareness of yourself, you were able to not only test the market out, but you didn't lose your shirt
yeah. Thank
at the
God.
same time. Whereas if everyone, other folks, not everyone else, but other folks not being mindful that consciousness is contagious, not being mindful of the personality types when it comes to investments. They lost their shirt, right? And who are they going to blame? Oh, it was the group. The group did it.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not your circle of
Right.
influences responsibility to make the call for your life. It's yours. So that's my response.
What are some of the tips you would have for people to expand their network, to increase their inner circle of the kinds of people that are going to elevate their professional life?
Yeah. First, there's a company. There's another resource. BNI. B as in boy, N as in Nancy, I.
Huh.
And they are a global networking group for professionals. So let's say you're new to an industry, or you're a veteran in your industry and you need more business. BNI, when you check them out, their company focuses on not just networking, but forced networking. So if you're a part of their group, every meeting you have, you're going to walk away with referrals, which is
Wow.
really cool. So you're bringing referrals, and also your group is bringing referrals to you. So that would be a great resource, BNI.
Brent,
Second,
oh, go
mhm,
ahead. Go ahead.
yep, second resource I would say is meetup.com. Now, the reason why I say meetup is because you're going to be able to enter any new environment and tap into the productive groups that are happening. And it can be any topic of discussion. Let's say if you want to do better at cooking at home, right? You can go to meetup.com and find some local cooking meetup groups where normally there'll be an expert that is really good at that particular skill. They're leading the group, and then all of you come together and you participate, you learn, you grow, you connect. And then if that's your space, of course, let's say if you're a chef, then that group will help you find more business, more gigs, more jobs. So I would highly recommend meetup.com. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, they have groups for just about any industry that's out there. So those would be my two resources to share.
Well, Brent, I think the biggest resource we've walked away from is you. You are a wealth of knowledge. I've known you, we're friends, and every time I talk to you, you drop more bombs on me where I'm like, how much does this guy know? So the most important part of the show, the one part I better never forget is, how do people get a hold of you, Brent? Who would you like to work with? And please don't, some of my guests are too shy. Don't be too shy. Tell our audience, how to get a hold of you and why they should get a hold of you, and remind them the value you bring, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andrew. So altogether, to get in touch with me, I have a website, brentbusinessadvisory.com. Again, brentbusinessadvisory.com. As I mentioned before, we help business owners and entrepreneurs increase their revenues by 5, 6, and 7 figures. We do it very simply: investments and diversification. And so altogether, to find me, go to brentbusinessadvisory.com. Also, I'm on Instagram as Brent The Businessman. I'm also on Facebook as Brent The Businessman. And you can find my podcast on YouTube called The Business Revolution Podcast. And you're going to love it because Andrew was a guest on Business Revolution Podcast. So I'm sure you'll see that episode and you will love it, as Andrew shared so many good, valuable resources and feedback and just a lot of nuggets. So make sure to see that episode. But that's where you can find me. And when you go to the website, you'll see all of the contact phone number, email, and everything else that you need to stay in touch. Like I said, again, the folks that we're looking to work with will be business owners and entrepreneurs that are in business right now looking to grow. And if you want to grow your revenues by 5, 6, or 7 figures, then me and my firm are the resource and the place to go.
Wonderful, Brent. I tell you, thank you very much, my friend. It was just great catching up, and then the amount of information and knowledge you dropped. I'll be rewatching the video myself probably a couple of times, and I think I'm going to be bugging you with some emails. I got some questions already for personally. Thanks again, my
Gotcha.
friend.
I appreciate you, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy.